This week in Crypto Recap, we've got how Bitcoin stacks up against some of the other major assets, and you'd be surprised how it shakes out. And then a collection of experts and analysts from all over the country have taken a look at Bitcoin and given their price predictions for the next few years. We are, of course, joined by Money Morning's crypto expert, Dave Zeiler. Thanks for being here, Dave.
Always good to be here.
So let's start with how Bitcoin is stacking up against some of these other assets like the S&P 500 and gold. How does it hold up against some of these classic investments?
Well, year to date, we're looking at Bitcoin is up 94%, which is by far the biggest increase of any asset. If you look at other assets, the best other asset we have is Palladium, which was up 53.4%. Nickel was up 32%. The S&P 500, the stock market, was up 29% year to date. Gold, 14.5%. And the best sector was the energy sector, is up 20%. And this was according to Reuters. I looked it up before I came in here. And I'm sure if you ask most people, you know, is Bitcoin up or down for the year? A lot of people would think it was down because it was a lot higher at one point earlier in the year. It was up over $12,000 and now it's down around $7,300. And yet, here we are, it's up 94% on the year because it started the year at about $3,500. And so here we are, it's about $7,300. And it just goes to show you this is since Bitcoin has existed, it's been up 10 out of the 11 years of its existence. And many of those years, it was way up. This year, 94%, not bad. You know, it's almost double the next closest one, and it's up almost, more than 3 times like the stock market is. So that just goes to show you that this is an asset that you should probably have in your portfolio. You know, maybe not a huge chunk of it, certainly not 100% or 50% or even, 10%, but it should be maybe something below 5, between like 2 and 5%. You should have a little bit of this in there, just like people would, recommend you have a little bit of gold in your portfolio. Have a little bit of crypto, particularly Bitcoin.
So given that you're recommending that people buy a little bit, a reasonable amount of Bitcoin, given we've got a lot of predictions that came out recently, what's the future looking like?
Well, yeah, we're coming to the end of the year, and this is when people like to look ahead and try to prognosticate what they think is going to happen. And with Bitcoin, we have a lot of people making predictions, and I've looked at 3 in particular of some experts. And one guy, his name is Peter Brandt. I happened to see him when I was in New York in May. And he's a guy who's very well known. He's been around for a long time. He's well known for his technical analysis. He's a big chart guy. And he thinks that he will see Bitcoin hit 100,000. He doesn't have an exact date on it, but he's like, the way it's looking, he sees it getting there at some point within the next few years. So he has a pretty strong reputation. There's another guy named Charles Wang who did a very long analysis. He is the managing member of Lightning Capital Hedge Fund. And he was looking at the halving coming next year when the supply gets cut in half in May. And he believes that Bitcoin will spike to 100,000. This is a common number. You see a lot of the predictions come back to that number. But he did something else interesting in that he predicted not only would we see a spike to 100,000, but then he decided to look at where the low was going to be after that, because it always comes back down again. It's the pattern that we've seen again and again with Bitcoin. And he looked at his low prediction was between $20,000 and $50,000. So like right now, you look where we are, 7,300. Even if you don't sell at the top, if you bought now and didn't sell at the top, but waited, and even after it crashed back down, if you're still like in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, you're still making at least 3 times your money. So again, another indication that Bitcoin is a good thing to have in your portfolio. The third person is Mark Yusko, who is the CEO and Chief Investment Officer of Morgan Creek Capital Management. Now, he is another Wall Street guy. He got into crypto a few years ago, and he's a big advocate for it. He's very bullish on crypto and particularly Bitcoin. And he made a series of predictions And of course, he sees Bitcoin hitting 100,000 by the end of 2021. So that's not very far away. But then he went further and said that he sees Bitcoin hitting 250,000 by 2025, and then going to between 400,000 and 500,000 by 2030, 10 years from now, which is pretty amazing, and they're pretty big numbers. And for that reason, I think he really does genuinely see something there, and he sees that value is coming to the Bitcoin space, and I think he really believes it's going a lot higher.
Great. So that's kind of a good spectrum of optimism from three different analysts there. And we'll be interested to see how this kind of shakes out. Out of curiosity, do you have any spitball ideas of where you think Bitcoin will be at the end of 2020?
I actually think that we could very well see the rally next year in 2020 after the halving. Probably not in the middle, because typically when we've seen the halving, the actual impact on the price tends to follow it, like by about 6 months. So I'm looking for a rally to happen near the end of the year next year. And I do think when it happens, it's going to go very quickly. I mean, the price could actually stay not too far from where it is now, maybe get to $10,000 by the summer, and not look like it's doing a whole lot. And then all of a sudden, when you get to October, November, it could just take off like a rocket and then go, from like 10, 15,000 to 75, 80, 100,000 in a matter of weeks.
Okay, well, that'd be pretty exciting news for everyone who's got money in the space. So
yeah.
We'll cross our fingers and hope that comes to fruition.
We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for being here. Always appreciate it. And everyone can catch Dave's latest work at moneymorning.com. There'll be links in the description of this video. And always follow him on Twitter for all sorts of good crypto remarks and comments and jokes and whatnot. So thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.